Hey guys, how's it going? Today I got something special for you. We're going to take a look at two, again, different but similar devices. These are both UMPCs. Both of them came out around the same time, 2006, 2007, and they have similar form factors. We're looking at the Sony VAIO UX versus the OQO Model 2. And both of these are, very old devices, so I have to basically keep them on charger power because the batteries are pretty much drained, so they gotta be on life support, guys, because that's how old they are. But they still power up, they still boot and work. Both these really unique UMPCs, I think probably the best UMPCs of the time. If you want to do a spec comparison, this one has a better processor, the Intel Core Solo. Remember Core Solo, guys? This is before the Core Duo came out, or Core 2 Duo came out. So this is before, the whole multiple cores thing. So, but this was still one of the most powerful UMPCs of the time because the other ones were running, they were running really slow processors like VIAs and Intel, the predecessor of Intel Atom, which was the Intel A110 and Pentium M's and stuff like that. The OQO is running one of those really slow ass VIA processors, so this is really, really slow. The problem with that's the really main problem with the OQO is that you used a really bad processor. They used a VIA for some reason. Guys, for those of you who are who are new and you grew up in the age of Intel versus AMD, there used to be other CPU manufacturers like VIA, Transmeta. They're very, very niche, but they're pretty much gone now. But there used to be more than just Intel and AMD. So yeah, VIA was one of them. They used to specialize in ultra low voltage CPUs, but their performance was really bad, and I mean really, really bad. I mean, Intel Atoms were superior to them. That's how you know. Intel Atoms are really slow, right? And you know it's slow when an Intel Atom beats you. So yeah, the VSC7M just sucks. Memory, in terms of memory, I think they have the same amount. They have both 1 gig. This one has an SSD, though I think it boots a little bit faster. Yeah, this one, traditional 40 gigabyte rotating, I think. I might have, oh, yeah, this one is, I tried to insert a PATA-ZIF SSD in here, but it didn't really work. It rejected it. The operation was not a success. Removable battery on the back of this one, and this one I believe has a removable battery as well. Let's see. Yeah, this is also a removable battery as well. So this was back in the days when everything had a removable battery, like all the phones, computers and stuff, they all had removable batteries. Not like these days when everything is just, once your battery dies, you gotta buy a new device, no, back then you can technically just keep on swapping batteries out. But there's a reason for that. It's because the battery life of these devices were really, really poor at the time. So just about 3 hours on each of them when brand new, right? Now they can't really be off of AC, but even when they were new, they can only last probably like 3 hours. Because you got to remember, back before Intel Haswell came out, the battery life of portable electronics was so bad. Uh, computers like laptops would probably last like 5 hours at most, and these small devices, they don't have much. Yeah, the processors were really inefficient at the time. They didn't improve the processors as much as they did now, so they were really power inefficient, and that's why I bet if Sony, OQO's out of business a long time ago, but if Sony made one of these devices right now, even the freaking same form factor with updated specs and the modern processor and stuff, you'd be like, I bet they would actually sell. I mean, just it's a cool looking device. Both of these are really cool looking devices, and yeah, it's just a really cool form factor. And I bet it would actually be the reason why these didn't sell is, like I said, the battery life wasn't good. It was both of them really expensive, like $2,000 each. And the performance was not very good. But if they used modern specs with it, like a Core M processor with, even 4 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of RAM, like, it can be pretty decent, I think. And yeah, anyways, just go over the details of each before we boot them on. Both of these, you're gonna ask me like how you're gonna navigate the screen of these two devices, right? When you don't have a touchpad like on a laptop. Well, this one has a rubber nub here, very similar to a ThinkPad track point, and you have zoom in, zoom out, so that's how you navigate. There's a power button right here, I have the special 007 edition. It's limited to only 500 units worldwide. Fingerprint sensor. This was way before fingerprint sensors were on cell phones and laptops. Back in 2006, they had a fingerprint sensor on here, so props to Sony for that. Again, front-facing camera, way before front-facing cameras were that popular, right? I guess they were. You had to usually buy an external webcam back in those days. You got a left click and a right click here, middle click, I think. Menu contextual button. You can turn the wireless on and off, because back in those days, laptops they had hardware wireless switches. You don't see that anymore, but they used to have that. Here you actually have a memory stick duo, which is Sony's version of an SD card. Then you have a actual camera on the back here. So yep, this is Sony was ahead of their game. So actually, when you lift this thing up, you reveal the QWERTY keypad, and you also reveal the 1.3 megapixel camera on the back here. You can actually take pictures with this thing. So I think if Sony made this today with modern specs, I think they would actually be oh yeah, one more thing is if they release this today, they have to improve this keyboard as well, because this keyboard is really hard to use. It's so flat. They gotta increase the travel a little bit on this. Yeah, I think this is the biggest downside of this device, is the keyboard is just so flat. Oh my god. Okay, now and then they have this is an expansion port, which you can actually add a dongle onto. So these days, you know, laptops, everything comes with dongles, but back then, if you had a machine this size, you pretty much, like, dongles were really necessary and justified, because there just wasn't enough space to use them. And that's one of them. Docking station, everything, I have those as well. And then the headphone jack and microphone jack right there. And then you have one full-size USB port, and believe, actually, I think that might be it. I thought this came with I was thinking this might have come with VGA, but maybe not actually. Might have been just this one USB port. You know what? I think it's in the dock. Alright, so I'm not gonna use the docks, but I do have the docks here for both of them, and I'm just gonna tell you guys what they do. So this was the Sony VAIO UX dock. Basically, it provided you a FireWire port, VGA port, 2 USB, Ethernet, and actually 3 USB. Yeah, and I think that's a headphone jack. Yeah, so that's what the Sony VAIO UX dock gave you. So pretty much all these small UMPCs came with docks back then, because they're so small. And if you really wanted to have all the ports, which were necessary back then, you know, those are days before Bluetooth, everything was wired, you gotta have a docking station. So anyways, Sony VAIO UX docking station. All right, now let's get to the OQO Model 2 first. This computer is made by a very small company who went out of business, I think a few years after they released this model. But basically all the advantages I said about the Sony are the disadvantages of the OQO. All the disadvantages of the Sony, I would say, are the advantages of the OQO. So the disadvantage of the Sony was the keyboard, which was very, very flat, right? The OQO has a very nicely raised keyboard here, which I like a lot better than the keyboard on the VAIO UX. So you have this nub here, which is very similar to the trackpoint nub on the UX. You got a left click and right click right here, which are much more convenient to me than the ones on the UX. The keyboard is a lot better. Like, the keys are raised and everything. Here it's so flat, it's so hard to type on. Here it's like all raised. I like the fact that it even squished a numpad in here as well. And the zoom buttons right here, easy to reach. And here, zoom buttons, you might ask, why are they necessary? Well, it's because of the screen. The screen size, you know, it's kind of small, so you need to increase the resolution to read text. And Windows XP, because both these ran Windows XP, did not have the scaling that Windows 10 does. So you needed those back then. Yeah, so, and the ports for this device, just got a power button. I think this one it's nothing. This one does come with an antenna. Okay, thought that might have been a stylus. No, it's an antenna. Wonder what that's for. It might have been for the LTE, the optional LTE modem that you could get with this device. I think when it came out, you could have optionally configured it with one, but I could be wrong. I mean, this was like 2007. I do remember in 2007 I was kind of drooling over this device, but I could never get it because it was so expensive and I was a poor college student. But you know, times have changed and now I can find this used on eBay. Down here you have a headphone jack, HDMI. This is actually a pretty interesting port to have at the time because HDMI wasn't that popular back in 2006 and 2007. Like the number of devices that had HDMI was very few back then, and this was a very nice, fast, you know, future conscious decision made by OQO. So props up to them putting HDMI when all the other computers and devices at the time were using VGA, right? And S-Video even, but yeah, HDMI port, very, very forward thinking on that. And of course, full-size USB port, still very important, okay? Like, until we get all of the devices like mice and keyboards connecting with USB-C, you're still gonna need adapters and dongles and stuff for USB-A. All right, let's look at the dock for the OQO. So the OQO dock is a little bit more unique than the one for the Sony. You basically have your OQO sitting on top of here, so you would go like this. It would sit in here, and you know, you have it raised like this, so it's like a stand almost. And it's also more fully featured than the Sony dock because this is actually a DVD writer, believe it or not. So this slot here is yeah, it's a DVD RW. Takes in DVDs, writes DVDs, burns them. Then you have a USB port on the front here, and then on the back you have your standard assortment of other ports common for the time. This is the charger, and then you got 2 more USB for a total of 3, just like the Sony dock. Full-size Ethernet, VGA, headphone jack, same as the Sony dock. HDMI, a pass-through HDMI. See, this is something that the OQO has that the Sony doesn't have, is HDMI capability, which is really, really forward-thinking by OQO. So props up to OQO for that. You know, but the biggest problem of the OQO is it's slow as molasses, and I really wish that they could have chosen, if OQO used the same Core Solo or Core Duo processor that the Sony used, it would have been the perfect UMPC at the time. Anyways, let's turn them both on. And this one, they're gonna both will boot into Windows XP, and this one. All right, guess which one's gonna go faster? OQO is already loading. Yeah, I think I might have an SSD on this one. That's why it's so fast. The SSD version is it's a slow SSD. It's not like the SSDs of today, like the SATA NVMe, not SATA, sorry, M2 NVMe SSDs of today are super fast. But SSDs back in the day were slow. Well, I shouldn't say slow because they're still faster than the rotating hard drives, but they're much slower than today's SSDs. They were PATA drives, which were slower than SATA drives, and SATA drives already are slow compared to today's SSDs. So anyways, yep, this one has a traditional rotating SSD, that's why it's so slow. All right, now I can see both of these computers logged onto Windows XP. For some reason the full background isn't displaying on here. I'm not sure why. You have a backlit keyboard here, very nice. I like the color. I'm not going to go online with either of these devices because, you know, it's an older, it's a Windows XP, and I don't want to get a virus or anything. But I just want to show you guys like how these computers compare, how they behave, how they boot up, the features of each, the strong points and weak points of each. It's good just to see good old XP again. But yeah, this is again, this computer is one of the better UMPCs released at the time. Very, very snappy. Again, the main downside being, in my opinion, the keyboard. I think the keyboard is yeah, it's very, very hard to type on, but I like that it's backlit. And you get Bluetooth, WLAN, and WWAN as well. So I guess you had the same options to add a LT, not LT, I think it would be 3G at the time, modem to this computer. Anyways, guys, that's the Yeah, and this would be wireless G, so even if I did connect, the speeds would be quite slow. Oh, another thing is this is a touchscreen as well, so I can click on like this. It's come with a stylus. No stylus. I mean, it is a resistive touchscreen, of course. No stylus included though. Yep. Yep. Anyways, that's cool. It's nice that it has a touchscreen. Yeah, actually, look at this resolution. Oh. 1024 by 600. Okay. Yeah, that's the resolution of this device. Cool. And this is the OQO Model 2. Again. I think this keyboard is backlit as well. It's not lighting up though. I thought it was backlit. This keyboard is a lot more comfortable to use, but and this is running XP, so it's reasonably fast still. But I think if you put Windows 7 on here, it might be much slower. I'm not sure if it has the drivers for Windows 7. Anyways, this is not a touchscreen like the Sony is, unfortunately. Yeah, I could have swore that this keyboard is backlit. Maybe there's a way to activate it, I just haven't found it yet. Anyways, yeah, that's the OQO Model 2 and the Sony VAIO UX. Which one should you get? Well, neither of them, because they're both really old and they're just for collectors now. But at the time, if I was able to go back in time to 2006, 2007, retrospectively, I think the Sony is still better. I mean, just the OQO is cool with the HDMI port, and you know, the keyboard is really nice. Oh, now it's backlit. Huh. What did I do there? Oh, it's backlit. Okay. The keyboard is really, really nice. I like it better than the Sony VAIO UX, but it's weird. I don't even know how I got this show up. But the problem is, yeah, this computer is just too slow. Like, the VIA processor is just such a bottleneck on this computer. I know it doesn't seem slow right now, but that's because it's just a fresh installation. If you were to just use it every day, you know, as someone who is buying this at the time would be using it every day, I guess, and mostly business users, I suppose, it would just be too slow for day-to-day operations. The VSC7M is just slow like molasses. Even though the Sony doesn't have as good a keyboard as the OQO, doesn't have the HDMI port, but the fact that it has the Intel Core Solo processor is, you know, it's just much more speedy, and having a touchscreen is also pretty nice too, I gotta admit, especially since touchscreens weren't that common back then, right? Not on computers and laptops, right? Now laptops, a lot of them have touchscreens, but you know, back then, yeah, you didn't really have any iPads, you didn't have iPhones back then, you didn't have touchscreen laptops, so having touchscreen on a device this size was actually quite beneficial. So, oh, there's also the fingerprint scanner as well. That's something that the OQO doesn't have either. So I think out of the two, I would probably still take the VAIO. Yeah, love the keyboard on the OQO, but for the general use case, you know, I gotta have be able to do stuff on these computers, right? Right. In the general use case, like, you want to be able to do stuff and get things done on these small machines, especially when you're paying $2,000 each for them. And in that sense, I think I'd probably be using the Sony more just because it's more performant. Yep. I get them both with an SSD though. This would be much faster if I put an SSD in it, or I configured it with an SSD. That's it, guys. The Sony VAIO UX and the OQO Model 2. Two of the best little UMPCs of their time, and still very unique to this day. I don't think anyone else has made anything quite like it. That's it, guys. Let me know if you have any questions or feedback. As always, thanks for watching.